I've had probably, I don't know, I would say 3 to 4 people within the last week that I've been just trying to get on the AI train. And I don't know, maybe it's just because of what we do. I feel like everyone in the industry uses it, whether it's like ChatGPT or some, like I was just setting up, our note taker or whatever just now. But I think outside of the industry or outside of like business, I don't think it's as mainstream yet as we think it is, you know?
Yeah, that's probably the case. It's like we're in this bubble, like, you know, in entrepreneurship and being in business. It's like, people aren't using this stuff necessarily in their daily lives. I mean, I would hope that, companies that people are working for are trying to integrate AI to streamline their processes and, um, just make things more efficient. I was talking to one of our reps the other day, and he's an outside sales rep for one of our brands, and he was telling me about how um, AI agents, basically he's using an AI agent to streamline the entire sales process and like outreach to all of his customers, and actually using an agent to do all of that, so all of his existing customers. um, but yeah, this is going to be one of those things where it's like, if you're not on the bandwagon, if you're not adapting, like, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, I was. It's always funny to see someone's reaction the first time they use any sort of like AI software because it's so different than like what we've known. And it's one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, I don't understand how we functioned without it, But I guess that's like you could say that
Yeah.
for anything, right? Um, but
I
it's
mean,
just
it all happens so fast. It's
yeah,
like,
yep.
a year. When did ChatGPT come out? A year ago?
I don't know.
It's like now it's used so frequently.
ChatGPT says was published on November 30th, 2022, but obviously it wasn't. I don't think anyone was
People
really
didn't
using
start
it.
using it then. I'm saying, like, available, open to the public for free.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, no, that's what it was, 2022. But I mean, it says in January 2023, estimated to have 100 million active users. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, not until last year did it actually start making headway,
Yeah.
in terms of mainstream use.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I would say too. But I'm looking at this, and like I said, it's saying that it was within 2 months. That's crazy. Within 2 months of launch, it had 100 million active users monthly. So, fastest consumer growing application in history. Free accessibility, wide range functionality. Yeah, it's just what's cool about it too. Like, I feel like anything you're doing in this business, whether it's just anything, like whether it requires any sort of complex thinking, like you can fast track it with AI. And that's not to say like I definitely have an issue with like I don't know. Let's say that you or I are in like fifth grade again. I don't know that I would ever want to do my homework because I think that I would just want to use AI or something, right? But I think if you have like that aside, like if you have a skill set and you already have the learning and the understanding ability, then it can fast track you. But obviously, I don't think it's a crutch or a substitute for actually learning things. But if you're running a business, hopefully you hopefully you can function without ChatGPT.
Yeah, I mean, I think ChatGPT, more so than anything else, it gets you thinking. You put something in and you give it a prompt, and then you revise the prompt, and it gets you thinking. Then all of a sudden, you have like 10 different ideas that you wouldn't have thought about if you hadn't typed it into ChatGPT. So I think that's where it can be used efficiently um, in all applications, education, business, whatever. But at the same time, like I think teachers are going to know when a student is blatantly using chat gpt to like write an essay.
Right. Well, it's like, and I heard this conversation the other day where it was like, is the purpose of a English class on Shakespeare to write the best Shakespearean paper that's ever been written? And if it is, then you should be able to use AI for it because that's what would accomplish that goal. But in reality, the goal of that Shakespearean class is to encourage that critical thinking and the ability to, um, you know, function and create and all of that. And so the quality of the paper that's written has no bearing on the student's ability to learn. It's an interesting argument, but either
Yeah.
here or there, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you guys are just joining us, live stream Wholesale Wednesday, 7 o'clock. We go live every Wednesday, answer some questions. So drop your Amazon questions here in the chat. We are happy to answer them. Anything you guys have. We got Darkness. Please show us a correct way when reaching out to a distributor to ask for a price list without sounding like somebody who just wants to flip a product.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can differentiate yourself, but at the end of the day, for a distributor, that's what they're concerned about too, is getting you to move product, right? So I would like a little more context personally on that question to say, like, is this something where you reached out and got rejected, or like, what's the scenario there? Because, um, you know, you want to target what they find valuable, which for distributors, usually just purchasing in volume. So,
Yeah, I mean, with the distributor, you just want to emphasize that you're interested in stocking the stocking product. You're serious about making a commitment to carry the inventory, and that's what they want to hear. You're going to prepay for the inventory. Like those are all things a distributor wants to hear because they're in the business of moving product in bulk, um, from business to business. So that's what they want to hear.
yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point on that, and I'll kind of touch on that a little bit too. Is we talk about like, don't start placing all of these asks and everything before you start a working relationship, right? So if you come into it and the distributor sends you pricing and it's all unprofitable, I wouldn't go and start asking for these crazy quantity discounts or anything right off the rip. I just think that, we talk about it. It's like get your foot in the door and establish yourself as being legitimate and like a partner. And I don't think that you do that through making an ask on the first go around.
Yeah. Jumping over to Instagram real quick. Vermo's asking, is this sourcing for OA or wholesale? This is going to be sourcing for wholesale. So we're going to actually find we're going to identify shortly here what a winning brand and product looks like by sourcing. We'll probably use Keepa Product Finder today. Last week we used Smart Scout. Everybody has Keepa, costs $20 a month, very accessible to anyone. And this is exactly our process that we use in our business to source profitable brands. So we'll dive into that here once we, get some of these questions answered. And then another question on Instagram from Umair. Does your test orders have to be profitable?
No, it does not. That's actually something that the reason that it doesn't have to be profitable is because you're not looking to make money on the test order. You're looking to do a couple things. One is you're looking to prove the legitimacy of the supplier, right? So, we always talk about like ways to vet suppliers and stuff like that, but let's just say that you do all the vetting process and the supplier still somehow scams you, right? I would rather get scammed with like 20 to 30 units than 3,000. So that's one, vetting your supplier. The other one is, you're checking buy box rotation. You're checking if you're actually going to be able to sell the product. And so you're focused on that. You're not necessarily focused on making money. If you make money, if it's profitable, great. But, that's not the concern. The money is going to come with the future orders.
Right. Right. Yep. Um, and then Seabass asking, hey, what do you say when a brand asks what your business model is?
Why don't you take this one?
So the answer to that is that basically what you're going to say is that um, you're actually going to jump the gun before they even ask. You're going to tell them like off the rip what your model is. You're going to say we're an e-commerce company. We stock and ship to our facility located in blank. Right. Insert your location. We have our own website. We do sell on Amazon. And then immediately after you say Amazon, you're going to kick it back to them and ask them a question. Right. So Amazon, a lot of brands will hear that and it'll throw off a red flag in their head. So what we want to do is we want to jump the gun and get over that hump that because they're immediately going to give you resistance as soon as you say Amazon, and you don't want to allow for that resistance. So you're going to use a strategy called diversion, where you're actually going to divert their attention away from what you just said, which was that you told them you sold on Amazon. So number one, you were honest with them about selling on Amazon. So now the cat's out of the bag, like they know where you're selling, rather than kicking the can down the road and never telling them about Amazon. You've gotten it out of the way at this point. Now you're going to use this diversion strategy to divert their attention away from Amazon. You're just going to say, could you tell me more about your e-commerce strategy? What does that look like for you right now? And then at that point, we say it all the time, you're going to get one of three responses on a spectrum of tonality. You're going to have, yeah, sure, we'll take it. We'll work with you. We have e-commerce companies. You're going to have absolutely not. We need a brick and mortar store. And then you're going to have the guys in the middle. And the guys in the middle don't know what they're doing or lack direction. And that's where you capitalize and pursue those brands. So that's pretty much the extent of the opening call when you're explaining what your business model is about. You can get deeper into that, if they ask questions specifically about your business. But we try to just, push it back on the brand and ask them questions and get them talking, to understand what their pain points are.
Yeah, it's funny. Amazon is almost it's like a trigger word. It's like a trauma-induced trigger word, right? And that's like you got to just flip the script because there's I don't think you're ever going to I don't think there will ever be a point in the wholesale game in which you say Amazon, they're like, oh, thank God, finally an Amazon seller. Like that's never gonna happen, right? So it's just about like just learning to overcome that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, they're getting contacted by so many Amazon sellers, so it's like you got to sound different. You got to differentiate yourself some way.
Yeah, I mean these brand owners, they're not, most of them, like they're not stupid, right? Like they are just bombarded with this every day, and it's not like they're irrational. And most of them are just trying to run their business, and so up to this point, Amazon has been nothing but a headache to them, which is why that it's eliciting this reaction. And so once you can kind of I feel like there's like a line, right? Like once you can cross that line in which you stop becoming a nuisance and you start becoming someone that is going to help them in their business and benefit them, I think that it totally shifts their mindset. I mean, we've had that with brand owners where we started and they were like, they hated us, right? And then they get down the line and they're like, wow, these guys actually know what they're talking about. They have our best interest in mind, and it makes them want to work with you.
Yeah. And you're not always going to get the brand owner on the phone. Like the brand owner is the best person to be in touch with because usually they're the decision. Like, I mean, 9 times out of 10, they're the decision maker unless they've like appointed a CEO who's running the company. But yeah, I mean, that's who you want to be talking to, but that doesn't mean you need to get the brand owner on the phone. Like, as long as you're speaking with somebody who has a level of decision making, that could be a VP of sales, it could be a sales manager, it could be a vice president, a CEO, somebody who has some sort of executive level of making decisions.
I mean, what would you say that the like stopping point is, right? Because I know we've reached out to brands and there's a certain point at which you're getting kicked around, right? And it's like you got to talk to this person and you got to talk to this person and now they're the decision. Like at what point are you like this is not a brand that maybe I thought it was of the right caliber when I reached out, but now I'm realizing that it's too big and we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, generally, you'll know that pretty quickly. Like if you call and it's an automated answering service, okay, well, then you get to a secretary and she has no idea what she's talking about. And then she's got to get to this guy and this, you know what I mean? So it's like, I like to, I kind of know it before I even pick up the phone. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's like, if I'm looking at a website that has a bunch of different brands, right? It's like a parent company that has like 6 brands. That's going to be a big company. So I'm like, I'm probably not going to be interested in that. Right. Not saying there's not any opportunity, but it's about, getting the most bang for your buck. And so that's, kind of like a good way to do it preemptively before you even call them is just, if it looks like a website where it's just, hey, this is the brand on the website, then that is probably a smaller to medium sized company, depending on
Mm.
the, of course. Yeah. So Tim, what's going on, man? Question here from Tim. I'm going to jump into some keep a product finder if you want to take
Yeah,
Tim's
definitely.
question here.
So it says, I'm noticing that a challenge that I'm having is distributors having an expectation of an e-commerce store. So like a website, right? Um, Lots of distributors also want brick and mortar location. When do you recommend a website? So let's kind of address that separately, right? So
And I'm
if
just
they have
going
an
to start plugging in
expectation,
I'm just going to start plugging in my filters here. So anybody watching while Brandon's answering the questions, if you guys want to watch what I'm doing on my screen, I'm just plugging in filters into keep a
yeah,
product finder.
you
We
you
do
could
this
take
every
that
week.
question off the screen as well. I could read it. Um, so yeah, let's address this in two different parts, right? So the first one is the challenge of distributors having an expectation of an e-commerce store. So I find that interesting on the basis of, is this a distributor that is industry specific, right? If it's an industry specific distributor, then it makes sense because they want an industry specific website. Um, if it's not an industry specific distributor, then to be completely honest with you, if you don't feel like doing that and creating a shoppable add to cart website, then I would recommend trying to find a different distributor for the product. But if it's worth it to you, right? Like if you want to niche down, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that people have a lot of success in niching down. It's just not something that we do personally. But if you want to create an industry specific website, I think that you can do that. And I think honestly, only you are going to be the one that determines if that's worth it or not. I say that with a lot of stuff within the e-com space. Like you will know when it's the right decision to do something. When you're like, I'm missing out on so many opportunities because of this. Depends on what distributors you're contacting, but the majority of distributors, in our experience, don't really have those requirements. So um, and the second one, same kind of answer, right? But partnering with a brick and mortar again is something that you can do if it is worth it and if it's profitable enough to you. Like if it takes up too much of your time and there's too much opportunity cost managing that relationship with the brick and mortar store, then I wouldn't recommend doing it. But yeah, I think that they're both viable options, and we know a lot of wholesale sellers that do both of them. You just have to make a determination if it makes sense for you in your current position.
Yep. And so on here, I'm just checking off my last boxes on keep a product finder. And all I did was I checked competition, how many sellers are on the listing, what's the sales rank, bought in the past month, and what's the price, and no Amazon on the listing, right? There's a lot of information in here that is irrelevant. And then arguably the most important one, which is at the bottom here, which tells us if the listing's going to have A+ content or not, right? So if it does not have A+ content, that tells us the brand doesn't have, a lot of control necessarily over what's happening on Amazon. It tells us they might not have brand registry. So it might be an opportunity for us to go in and, provide them with value. And so that's substantially brought our product results down from 21 million down to 9,000. So now we're niching down. And then I'll go all the way to the back of keep a product finder. And then I'll just kind of source reverse backwards and you know, there's a million different ways to do this, but I like to just take a quick glance at the image and kind of see what the nature of the product is. Like, we're still going to get big brands like Glad. We're not interested in big brands like that. So we're looking for something that's more so, smaller to medium size, but maybe I'll take a glance at the sales, which is 200 in the past month. I'll also take a glance at the price. So like 200 at $20, it's not that exciting to me. Um, but there's a whole bunch of data points you can look at here, not all of which are going to be relevant.
Yeah. One thing you definitely need to make sure you're doing if you're using Keep a Product Finder is really vetting out those big brands. Like you're going to get a lot. You can actually, and it's not a foolproof method, right? Because you can't really tell what every brand is going to be branded under, right? So it might not be branded under the exact brand name, but you can actually filter out brands. So if you went to, the advanced filters, you can actually do it where it says it's basically like none of. I'm not sure where it is. I believe it's down somewhere. Can basically be like is none of. It's somewhere in here. I will find it.
Here.
Yep, there you go. So exactly. So you can do is none of on the second line down there, and on the third one over, where it says is one of brand, you can do is none of right there. And then what you can actually do is you can put in an exclamation mark and then put in the area. You actually might not even need to do the explanation. I personally do. But you can put in an exclamation mark and then put in a space, and you can actually filter out every single brand that's in there from what I've done. And so you can actually do this where you can like download it into a CSV or something like that. Maybe not. I'm looking at her right now. I've always put an exclamation mark with it. I guess you don't need to do that. So you just put in the brand name and just separate it out. So if you see that there is a consistent, like a consistency of, let's say, Nike in there or Adidas, right? Like you can always filter those things out so those will not show up, which is really helpful.
Yeah. So if we go back to our product finder and it's like, all right, well, here's Tops and Aloha and Mrs. Myers and Mrs. Myers again, Mrs. Myers again, Aloha again, Mirror Case. So like these are brands that you can put in and be like, I don't want to look at any of this because those are all big brands. Green Mountain.
Right.
And so, we go to the back, right? And I personally just kind of peruse, but if I'm looking at something like this, right, I like to glance at that Keep It chart. So you guys can see that Keep It chart down in the right-hand corner. I'm 90% sure that that's a private label product just based on that Keep It chart that I'm seeing there. Consistent price that never moves. Like if we looked at this, let's see, maybe not. Maybe I was wrong, but there's one seller on it, so.
No, I think it is. It's probably just the brand that's selling under a different name.
Yeah. So we would want to just, obviously you'd want your Keep a Chrome extension, and yeah, it's one seller on it at all times. So it's the brand most likely, or an exclusive seller, but most likely the brand.
That's interesting. I didn't pick up on that from that the picture. Is that what kind of gave it away for you, or what? Because like I said, I would have probably obviously as soon as I looked at it, I would have been able to tell.
The brand name and the Keep a chart kind of signaled private label to me. The consistency of the price, the really strong demand.
Did you see what these are?
What's that?
Did you see what those are?
The handcuffs?
Yeah.
Did I see what they are?
Yeah. Look at this. Look at this subcategory.
Police handcuffs, professional grade.
They must be misbranded or something. Go to Keep a Product Finder. Or miss.
Yeah, I already went to the next page.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was. They were subcategorized as bondage restraints. So.
Miscategorized.
Yeah. Well, actually, and like it's funny though, because that, I mean, obviously this is a private label type of product, right? But like that could be a value add to the brand. Like we've had that multiple times where it's like, there's an issue with the product is miscategorized, especially if it's something like that, where it's like, let's say it's a professional product and, it's categorized as like, that was something that was in like the adult products, right? Like a brand doesn't want to be associated with stuff like that. And so it could be a value add. Also, Oliver, what's up on YouTube? Hi guys, will a replay of this be available? Yes, sir. Every Wholesale Wednesday is live on YouTube after the stream ends, so you'll be able to watch it.
Yep.
What is that? Is that a
this?
Wow, look at that branding.
Busy.
That is a lot going on. Yep. That's something that I would stay away from right on the basis of it's a supplement or something relating to that, right? And supplements, as we know, have a lot of issues with compliance on Amazon. So,
yeah. Same thing here. I would stay away from that because of what it is.
Yeah. And I like that, and just on the basis of looking at it, right? But once we look into it a little deeper because of what it is,
yeah,
probably not. I'm probably going to stay away. If this was a product that wasn't in this category, I think we'd be all over it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's because we can add value to the brand because they have a terrible image here and they have a terrible listing, but I mean, it's nothing crazy, 200 at 34, but it's good for, a beginner, right? But again, like we would stay away from this because of what it is. It's, energy supplement, it's not really a great place to be in from a compliance standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we just keep scrolling here and kind of see if something catches the eye. A lot of times it's these obscure brands. Yeah, another supplement thing. I mean, And so the goal here is to maybe find a few different products as you're doing this, and then ultimately open up those products in new tabs, and then look at the sellers that are selling those products and then source their stores, which is the storefront stalking part of the process. And then, I mean, the rabbit hole never ends with that.
Yeah, what do we got right there down it says Wubby's Towels by Graham Beauty. Let's click on that one. Tubal. Yeah, up right there. Yeah, looks interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad listing.
This looks like what's it called?
Does
that almost
have other products?
Let me just hold on. I'm gonna look this up just to confirm what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so I mean, this is an example of like a good product because they clearly have other products that sell on Amazon. So if it was just this, $37 price at 200 sold, I'm going to take a quick glance and keep it here just to kind of see if that price is stable, which it is. Let's keep it, the demand is not that great, 100 to 200 units a month. Like it's okay. But it's not going to make you rich, obviously. If you get like, 10 of these products, right? I mean, that would be solid. But the brand clearly has other products. Like, I mean, this one's selling for $5. So you're not going to make any money there, but They have a couple other products from what it looks like. Here's one that's moving 1,000 bought at 45, 9.99. There's some opportunity to make money at 9.99, 400 bought. Um, so they do some business here, right? It's not just this one product. And so the listing though is just terrible, right? It's got one image, it's got a couple bullet points, it's got a terrible title, you know, like ideally as a brand on Amazon, you want to have lifestyle photos in there. You want to have infographics. You want to have images that showcase the benefits of the product, the features and the benefits. Same with the bullet points. You want to have keywords in those bullet points that are high searchability, right? So that the listing can index higher in Amazon's algorithm. The title, you want to have features and benefits listed in the title, right? Like this is just not checking any of those boxes.
Yeah, and one thing that I would push for on a listing like this is if you are potentially purchasing it, I mean, most of the time, right, we'll say the opposite, but this is the only case in which I would say to actually estimate this, selling it at a higher price than the current buy box, assuming this buy box price is pretty stable. Because if you look, we've got all merchant fulfilled offers, right? And so we're assuming that there's, no anything relating to like FBA ineligibility. But if there's not, like you can get the buy box safely, I would say at probably about $40 for this at least. Yeah.
Yeah, you got two guys selling it here for 48. Maybe they're actively selling at 48.
Very possible. Yeah.
And even if you went down a little bit, you could easily go down to like 42 and
Right.
you'd probably get the other, it would be there would be like two buy boxes, or you might get the whole thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Jumping in to answer another question here. Is the goal to find good product, then reverse source off of it for other leads? The goal is to find good products. However, you choose to do that is up to you. We just believe that that is an effective method, right? Like you could never storefront stock in your life, right? You could do everything through Smart Scout if you wanted, right? Is that the
Yeah.
most efficient method? No, but you could do it. So as long as you're finding good products and finding a way that works for you, we just try and show you all the methods that we use so that you can get a good gauge of it.
Yeah, and I mean storefront stalking is where you're really going to go down the rabbit hole. So like even on this listing, right? I'm going to look at the sellers that are selling it, and here's one seller, but they only have 6 ratings and 83% positive. So that's not of interest for me to even open that because 6 ratings are not selling anything and it's bad feedback. But this guy has, 30,000 ratings and 100% positive. So I'll open this up in a new tab and just kind of poke my head in the storefront, right? And it looks like they kind of run a similar model, right? So they're proven e-commerce accelerator, right? That connects brands and customers. So they're elevating brands. All right. Well, this is the kind of stuff that we're doing, right? And so I'll scroll through here and now you potentially have a storefront to source through. I'll just kind of take a peek at what they carry. And it looks like it's a lot of stuff in the beauty category. But I'll take this and then I'll run this storefront ID through Keep a Product Finder. So, quite literally, you just jump back here and you go back to Keep a Product Finder. My filters are reset. I'm going to go all the way down here to seller, right? And I'm going to go to this seller. If I wanted to run this store, I'm going to copy this storefront, this ID right here, not the marketplace ID. So in the URL, you'll see me equals, and then a big string of letters and numbers in all caps. And then you'll see marketplace ID with a big string of letters and numbers in all caps. You want to get the one that says me equals. So you're going to copy that. You're going to go back here and paste that in here. And now it has just filtered the 1,300 products that the seller carries. And you can, I would run it holistically and then maybe go back and revise things after you've taken a peek at the store because we're only dealing with 1,300 products. And so like they carry a bunch of products by Adore. Well, if they carry all these products by Adore, are they exclusive with the brand is what I'm asking. Well, maybe not. There's multiple resellers on it, and so you can go back and fine tune your filters like that. But this, again, like you open up products in a new tab, and then you go through the stores on that listing, and then, you add the storefront to your list, and then you plug it in, keep a product finder, and then you just keep going and go, like the rabbit hole just never ends.
Yeah, and the good thing about something like this and this method is that you are getting rid for the most part of those massive amounts of big brands, right? So you're not going to have to deal with that on such a scale as when you're doing a generic search.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're like doing all of these, it's like it's like subdivisions. You're in this store, and then you're in that store, and it's like, it's no better way than to storefront stock in order to like niche down further and further. No better way, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it starts there, like our favorite part of the business is definitely the outreach. But we have both been in that scenario where like when we're learning, and honestly for us even it took a while to really refine the sourcing process. And if you're not contacting leads that are of the caliber that you should be, and like that is different for everybody, right? Like I think a lot of these brands that we looked at today were kind of beginner brands where you need those. Like don't swing for the fences every single time. Like you need these brands that are within your weight class so that you can get the experience. But you still have to be sourcing the right brands, right? And learning and understanding this process translates to making a really successful business. This is step one, is finding the leads.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I was telling somebody the other day, it's like, when we first started doing Amazon wholesale, I said I'm going to contact 100 to 150 brands per week. And I'm going to do that for 3 months from January to March, right? That was like the New Year resolution. I wanted to get the hell out of RA, right? Um, and so 3 months of outreach, 100 to 150 brands per week. And you better believe that, that comes with a bunch of sourcing, right? You got to be sourcing, but I did not at that time outsource sourcing, um, to a VA until I knew it myself, right? And so that's the biggest thing, is that like arguably sourcing is more important than outreach, because your outreach is only going to be as good as the leads that you're contacting. If you're contacting a bunch of, you know, Procter and Gamble companies, you're just going to be spinning your wheels for however long, because you're contacting the wrong brands. And so like lock in for 3 months. If you attend these lives, you are understanding, you understand at this point what a winning brand looks like, right? ASP, volume, and um, underrepresentation on Amazon, right? And so, Brett,
Gotcha.
he pieced out early on us.
Yeah. I was like, he's got it. I'll take off. I clicked on something.
No. And I was just saying, like, at the end of the day, your outreach is only as good as your sourcing.
Yeah.
Um, that's the key. Like, I mean, I would honestly, like, at this point, like, sometimes I think about it, like, sometimes it might make sense to outsource, like, at scale, right? If you're doing seven, eight, like seven, I would say like high seven, maybe even eight figures. Like you might want to outsource the outreach, or at least the initials, and you focus on the sourcing. You know what I mean? Because it's like that's where it all starts.
That's a bold claim right there. Um, yeah. I mean, we've talked about that stuff, and it's obviously there's a learning curve either way, right? Like whether you're trying to teach the sourcing or whether you're trying to teach the outreach. Um, but I think all that to say, like, that's how important sourcing is. Like, it's sourcing is important enough that Brad said that he would also think about, outsourcing outreach, which we all believe to be the most important thing, right? In exchange for sourcing. So it just goes to show you, like, the more we've done this, the more we've learned that it's important.
Yeah, and so if you guys are tuning into these lives, we do this every week where we find these winning brands and these products that we would quite literally go in contact. I found products and I've like full transparency, I've contacted the brand the next day. Like I'm not even like we have found brands on this live. Like so this is again another incentive like for you guys to continue to join these lives because it's not like this is just some like we're not like doing this shit before we get on and like filtering it. It's
Yeah,
like
there's
this
no
is raw.
preparation for these.
This is
This is
raw,
yeah.
unedited, exactly over the shoulder sourcing, exactly how we do it. And so, yeah, I mean, I've contacted some of these brands that we find here on these lives. Um, got it. If you're in the lives, like keep joining them.
Contact them before Brad does.
Yeah. Might be your next exclusive, your next brand exclusive.
Yep.
Got to be value to add though.
Yes.
All right. Good stuff. Well, you would have a
High closing VA. Wouldn't personally recommend doing it through a VA.
nah, you got to get a US based salesperson to do that.
For closing. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you can't outsource outreach to a VA overseas, you know. But yeah, good stuff, Last minute words, just get to work.
No, I think that's it. Just go execute. Keep pushing, make your cold calls, and we'll see you next week at 7.
Cool. Peace out.